Hi, and welcome back. I've been wanting to do this for about the past year, and I know that other social media channels have been discussing this, but I thought I'd chime in and give my 2 points. So, forgive me if I repeat what everybody else is saying, but here we are in 2026, and it seems that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society and the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses are at a pretty big crossroads. This was an organization that used to be this beacon of religious growth, but now it's turned into a massive corporation with a huge real estate portfolio of millions of so-called dedicated followers. But here's the kicker. Recent data shows that there's a legitimacy crisis brewing that could really shake things up for them. Now, this isn't about religious persecution, like the governing body would have you believe, that this is an attack of Satan the devil. The truth is that there's a noticeable decline happening, and it's fueled by some internal contradictions and legal troubles and a real struggle to keep up with the digital age. I mean, you can see the signs everywhere, like the selling off of kingdom halls, younger folks not sticking around, and a society trying to tweak its doctrines just to dodge legal issues in places like Australia and Norway and Spain and other places. Nowadays, people see the society less as a vibrant movement and more like a real estate company, and that's just trying to stay afloat financially, while it's claimed to be the exclusive, have the exclusive rights to divine truth. But they seem to be losing their shine pretty fast. And so these days a lot of people are stepping away from being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and there are some pretty big reasons for that. For starters, trust in their belief is really starting to fade. Recent changes have shaken things up between the leadership and the members. Things that used to be super important, like the beard policy, just got changed out of the blue. And sisters can wear pants now, and brothers don't need to wear a suit or a tie, and nobody really acknowledged the pressure that members were under. As I said, dress codes and shunning practices have also seen some shifts. Disfellowshipping, which had been a control tactic for decades, over 50 years, has recently been softened because of legal pressures, allowing for quick hello and with disfellowship family members. They're calling this change a kind gesture, but it feels more like they're worried about legal issues than actually finding new insights in the Bible. And so loyal members are feeling pretty lost, since these changes seem more about politics than spirituality, which is causing a crisis of legitimacy and loyalty. And so as witnesses, we, like myself, we gave up relationships and jobs and the freedom for what they thought were divine commands. They're now facing a tough reality. Now, I personally have overcome those issues, but many haven't. And so the governing body isn't really acting like prophets anymore. They're more like administrators, just trying to manage legal risk and how they're seen publicly. And elders who used to enforce the rules are now stuck with, tough questions like how to explain a changed beard policy to someone who lost their privileges because of it. The usual reassurances about trusting the governing body just don't hit the same anymore, since it seems like these changes are coming from outside pressure rather than true beliefs. And this loss of confidence goes beyond just, policy changes. If the organization can, mess up on things like beers and shunning, so what else are they getting wrong? Their belief systems really hinges on a solid trust in authority. But when that trust starts to waver, well, doubts can spread like wildfire. Plus, they're facing some serious legal challenges and financial strains, especially in Europe. Countries like Australia, Norway, and Spain have thrown some major legal hurdles their way, and others are starting to follow suit. Back in 2021, Norway pulled the Jehovah's Witnesses religious status, cutting off crucial funding because they claimed their shunning practices were violating children's rights and amounted to psychological abuse. And this move really highlighted a clash between how the organization disciplines its members and what human rights standards expect, leading to immediate financial hits and a big blow to this credibility. So, it hit them right where it hurts, right in their pockets. They've had tough times in Norwegian courts, getting shot down repeatedly in their appeals. Then Spain jumped in and took away their public utility status, which meant, losing tax benefits and recognition, all because of ongoing family separations and, psychological manipulation, especially affecting kids. Then we had the Australian Commission regarding the child abuse cases. So instead of standing their ground, what does the governing body do? They decide to change their policies in response to these legal troubles. They rolled out new guidelines on shunning and family ties pretty quickly after the setbacks. And this shift shows how flexible their so-called unchangeable biblical principles can be when money is on the line. And so the society, which relies on government support and tax perks while dealing with dwindling membership and literature sales, has sold off billions in properties, especially in Brooklyn, and has either merged congregations to save resources, or they've sold off kingdom halls. Then we have their new media center in Ramapo, New York, which really highlights how urgent the need for funding is while still trying to keep that tax-exempt status, which could at any moment be taken away from them, and then they'll be in really big trouble. And so it raises some eyebrows about their credibility, since members are noticing how doctrinal changes seem tied to financial pressures, making younger folks see the organization as putting financial interests ahead of biblical truths. And so the psychological impact of ending the reporting system, those field service cards for Jehovah's Witnesses, is pretty big. I mean, think about it. For almost 100 years, the field service report was key for tracking, spiritual health, with publishers sharing their detailed stories about their ministerial work. And this system shaped how individuals and congregations were viewed by God, creating a kind of hierarchy where those who hit their hourly goals got more recognition, while those who didn't, well, they often felt left behind. And so the organization really pushed this idea through various communications, celebrating the top performers. But then in November, back in 2023, what happened? The governing body dropped a bombshell. Starting in January 2024, publishers wouldn't have to report their hours anymore. saying that it was too too competitive. And so this left a lot of people, scratching their heads, especially those who had built their identities around these numbers and even changed careers for pioneering status. And so participation in field service, well, it just took a nosedive as the social pressures ease. And so this change shows a bigger trend of decreasing urgency within the movement as members deal with apocalyptic fatigue after years of waiting for crises that, well, never came. And so today, field service participation has shrunk to almost nothing, replacing the once passionate evangelism that defined the movement. I've lived in this house for almost 10 years. Never had a Jehovah's Witness knock my door. And it's not like they know who I am. I think I've seen one Jehovah's Witness in another city, just standing there in front of his cart, drinking a cup of coffee, not approaching anyone, just waiting for them to come to him. And that's what it's come down to. And so the Watchtower Society, the governing body, they kept a tight grip on information, controlling how it flowed and discouraging members from looking at outside literature or doing their own research. And this worked fine before the age of the internet came along. But now with internet, social media, and all kinds of stuff that's out there, anyone can easily find discussions about the society's history, the inconsistencies, the unfulfilled prophecies, the policy changes. There are tons of websites from former members and many YouTube channels that offer deep insights and personal stories. Courts have actually uncovered legal documents that show some serious cover-ups regarding child abuse and financial misconduct. And for the new generation of Jehovah's Witnesses, the old school teaching methods from the Watchtower just aren't cutting it anymore. And when they start digging into the significance of doctrines such as 1914, they stumble upon critiques online questioning its timing and the predictions that didn't pan out. And they also notice some inconsistencies in the organization's claims about being the only source of God's truth, which just adds to the confusion. Even though they're encouraged to use tech for their JW broadcasting and digital publications, they're also warned against looking for outside info, which feels pretty contradictory. And so young witnesses quickly catch on that the organization's story doesn't always match up with historical facts. And so, like the failed prophecy of 1975 that led a lot of people to make big life choices, at first the organization denied making those specific predictions. And then they turned around and what did they do? They blamed the members for misunderstanding them. One convention discourse, I think it was Fred France, who said, "You know why nothing happened in 1975? Because you wanted something to happen in 1975. No, we were told something would happen in 1975. Now all this history is out there, online, and it's really hurting the organization's credibility. And you can see similar patterns with other hot button issues like their changing stance on blood fractions and those child abuse cover-ups. Young witnesses are at a crossroads. They can either accept the confusion or admit that the organization's claims have some serious flaws, and many are choosing the latter. And studies show that over 2/3 of Jehovah's Witness kids end up leaving the organization, usually in their late teens when they finally get access to the internet. And the organization's response? They label online criticism as, satanic, thinking members will, stay in the dark, which is becoming less and less realistic. And so the real problem is that the Watchtower Society's dependence on a a carefully crafted narrative, and the internet is really shaking that up. You know, the society puts out these annual service year reports to show how they're growing and where they might expand next. But in the past, they love to highlight steady growth as a sign that they were on the right track. But in 2025, the data paints a different picture. It turns out most of the growth is happening in developing countries, where birth rates are high and internet access is limited, mostly through baptizing kids instead of converting adults. Meanwhile, places like North America and Europe are either stagnating or even declining, which is a real worry for their financial model since they depend on support from these regions. And so retention is becoming a bigger issue too, with more young folks leaving than getting baptized in these developed countries. And so congregations are getting older, and fewer kids of witness parents are opting for baptism. Plus, the way they report their numbers seems to inflate active membership by counting people who barely participate. And memorial attendance has pretty much plateaued, showing that engagement is also dropping. Then there's this congregation consolidation program that reflects some big demographic shifts. You know, many congregations are merging or even dissolving because, well, membership is down. So instead of facing this decline head on, what does the society do? The organization has decided to merge struggling congregations and sell off extra kingdom halls for cash. They've also been cutting back on missionary programs and laying off people at headquarters, which hints at some financial pressure. It used to be you would go to Bethel and you could be there for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Now they say that it's a temporary assignment. They can invite you to come in and get rid of you anytime they want. And so now it seems like they're more focused on keeping the members they have rather than expanding, which it's really signals the end of that growth phase. And so the witnesses today are a far cry from what they were in the mid 20th century. Now it feels like they're prioritizing keeping their assets safe over the actual religious mission. And so with the demographic challenges they face, it seems likely that they'll keep declining in developed countries, especially since younger members are less engaged. And recent changes in policy suggest they're more about survival than sticking to their doctrines, which really undermines that sense of divine guidance that used to keep people loyal. And so the ongoing asset sales and consolidations make it seem like they're shifting towards becoming more of a religious media corporation, trying to keep a loyal following through, digital content. And so this raises some ethical questions for those who gave up education and relationships based on what the organization promised. They haven't really addressed the failure of their prophetic predictions, instead downplaying these issues and putting the blame on members for not understanding. So, looking ahead, while we don't ever see an end to the Jehovah's Witnesses, we might see an even quicker decline in developed markets, while some growth could happen in developing areas, leading to more consolidations and a focus on more digital media, which means that, well, the society is going to be what they've always abhorred in the churches and made fun of. They're going to be a tele-evangelist type organization, preaching from their behind the camera on JW Broadcasting. And could come a time where there won't be any more kingdom halls. The friends would just be meeting in their homes, pretending to be watching. Either that or they may convert these assembly halls into mega churches, mega kingdom halls, and have 4 or 5 or 6 congregations meeting there. Have one meeting a week like a regular church on a Sunday, and that'll be it. And so the Watchtower Society might stick around, but their mission seems to have shifted to managing decline and protecting their assets. And for current members, reconciling their beliefs is getting tougher, while former members are left feeling a mix of vindication and at the same time sadness. And so the Jehovah's Witnesses really show how authoritarian religious movements can struggle with being transparent and adapting to generational changes, especially as more people quietly just drift away from belief. And so here you have it. What will the future hold for the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, for the governing body, for the rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses? Only time will tell, and the clock is ticking. And, well, I'd like to hear your thoughts. So if you have any thoughts on what you think is going to happen, please write them below in the comments section. We can have a bit of a dialogue. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you didn't and think that it's all part of Satan's lies, then hit the down button and tell me why. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day, and God bless.